Live streaming is on.
Hey, good morning and good evening, everyone. Coming to you live here on Friday. We're excited to talk about some new rollouts today. And I was going to talk about how dApps will make centralized software obsolete, but it's really more, Tim, about the new model of work integration. And I'm joined here. I'm Dan Gay, Chief Marketing Officer of BlockCerts Blockchain. And we also have Mr. Tim Vasco, who is the founder and Chief Executive Officer of BlockCerts Blockchain. Good morning to you, Tim.
Hey, Dan, how are you? I
I'm,
understand you're working from anywhere today, too. Where is that anywhere? You're on
yeah,
a
I'm
beach
working.
somewhere.
I'm working from anywhere. I'm in a bedroom right now, but at a house about 2 steps from a beach in Newport
Nice.
Beach, California. So
Nice.
it truly is what we're going to talk about today, Tim, as you said. A whole different way to work and work integration. It doesn't matter where you are, but it's important to make sure that it's private, that you're not tracked, hacked, and exposed and spied on, et cetera. So a lot of what we're going to talk about here
I
today.
think in the world from here, Dan, what we're looking at is this idea of what work is. It's a redefinition of work. And in order to redefine work, as you mentioned with dApps, we have to redefine the technology of work, right? And that's what we've been working on at
Right.
BlockCerts. So I'm excited about what we're going to talk about today because it affects really literally everybody. And the reality is that after 40 years, work-life balance is over. And today, the future is hybrid. It's about choice, and it's about how you get choice and what blockchain, dApps, and all these kind of buzzwords you hear about all the time
Right.
really mean. And so fundamentally, let's get into that. Like the word work-life balance was first used about 40 years ago by Lillian Gelbreth. She was a psychologist, an industrial engineer, consultant, an educator. She did all of these things and was quite involved in this idea of, well, what is work? How does that integrate with your life and so forth? And this idea of work-life balance came about. But, where we're at today is not just work-life balance. And it's interesting because everybody's talking about it. Like if
Right.
you look at this is The Economist. Look at how many articles there are about what work's going to be, how we're going to get there, who lost jobs, what the rise of work from home, robots threaten jobs less than we thought. It's all about what the heck is work, right? What is it? And so the idea that work-life balance is over really is work-life balance has an integration, and it always has had. It's never really been about balance. And anybody Dan, or I know in our generations, like work has been my life. And I always love to say to people, especially the people who pull stuff, like the guys who pull stuff and it's really nasty in work. It's really under the table. They cheat on contracts. They do all this in the terms of getting control or making profits, right? And
Right.
I always hated that statement. It's only business. No, it's not. It never has been. You spend your entire life usually at work more than with your family.
You do,
Right?
more than sleeping.
More than sleeping, more than with your friends. If
Right.
you're a jerk at work, you're a jerk. There's no other way about it. Sorry. If you cheated at work, you're probably going to cheat at home. You're going to cheat in your life. You are a cheater. And so this idea, and then when these big frauds expose, all the victims come out. And of course, the fraudsters go, oh, it was the victim who did it, and things like that. It's really, this idea of work-life integration. And at a more calm level, it's about what's been happening as the pandemic has arisen, as organizations and people needed to learn, how do I make a living and keep living at the same time, right?
Right.
So I just came off of, as you know, 26 days on a boat working and literally working from the middle of the ocean, covered about 500 nautical miles and worked every single day. And it was brilliant. But what does work look like? Work looks like this with kids. That's what it looks like. And actually, some of the best meetings we've had on Meet Certain, the platform on right now, is when we've met people's kids. I've loved it. We've even on the World from Here had Daniele's kids come in, and you know, it's just been wonderful to see that integration. And you know what? Today, our kids know what we do. I remember when I was a little kid, I had no clue what my dad did for a living.
Not at all.
And, you know, and today you get to see what mom and dad do for a living. Right there is, you know, on a holiday like you are on, in the kitchen, in the study, you know, wherever you happen to be, the kids go, oh, and we're educating them about what it's like to be a working person. And what do you think that's doing to the psychology of the next generation? Right?
It's amazing modeling. You know, young people are like sponges, and they all obviously have grown up with computers like we haven't, but they're growing up in a whole different age. This work integration is part of what they do.
That's
today.
Right. And so, you know, when now recent challenges are coming up, which is your company could be spying you. Surveillance software used is up over 50% since this pandemic started. So CEOs like this, CEO of IBM and so forth, are being forced to make these balancing decisions. What's privacy? What is, you know, work? And how do we measure that? Well, I'll tell you what, measuring it by sticking cameras in families' homes is not fair. Number one, it's not, I'd say
intrusive.
Two, it's intrusive. It's not ethical. And at least who knows what the percentage of return to an office is going to be, but it's not going to be like pre-pandemic. There's no question about that. So we have to start looking at what are the changes in the model. And I remember when bring your own device became such a huge thing, right?
Right.
Well, again, get over it, IT. They talk about the security risks and how do we secure these devices. This new model of work integration is connecting these elements we use on our devices, on our personal or even company devices, and our lives, and these cameras that peer into our personal lives, right? That we're doing meetings with, and all the things around us. So again, it's no longer about bring your own device. That's over too. You might bring your own device, you might not. But what you're certainly going to do is bring your own cloud, right?
Right.
And more, this is what BlockCerts mandate has been about. More and more, we're trying to find ways to integrate those needs of life that cross over with those needs of work, right? And two of those are identity, and now this huge mandate for vaccines, right? Now, the question is, if you think about it, if people just get logical for 1 minute, do you ever, Dan, answer texts from your family, your kids, in the middle of a workday?
Yeah, all day long.
Like constantly. And you know, we either do it over here on a device or whatever. And certainly we're going to do that. We should. We should spend that time. We should focus on our work, but we should also be completely engaged with what we're working for. Why are we working? We're working for life. We're not working just because work is there. You know, work should be engaging. It should also engage the other parts of our mind and our lives. And so, when you bring your own cloud, you're starting to think about that. And in a more practical kind of fundamental way, it comes down to this idea of what we're talking about with vaccines and what we're talking about with working with certainty, obviously, as well as ethically within our communities, our homes, and with proper policies to protect the company we're working for. So there's actually a term for this, and that term is ESG. It's huge. You can go look this up anywhere on the web. You can Google ESG, and it's now the new calculation for business, and all enterprises are trying to figure this out. So ESG, the environment, climate change, the environment we work in, all that, social. So environmental, social, and governance criteria are how investors and people going to work for companies are evaluating those companies. And it says here right now, many mutual funds and brokerage firms offer products that employ ESG criteria. So it's a big, big thing as work evolves in organizations, right? Not just the big organizations, though. Think about that for a minute. If you're an organization that's completely engaged and modified, these criteria are going to be how you recruit the best people, how you have balance within your organization, and so forth. And all of that basically boils down to what we call in our program choice. But let's look at United Airlines and what they just did. Right? United Airlines granted religious exemptions to vaccine mandate, which puts people on unpaid leave. Right? That is an ESG policy in action. One, we're respecting employee rights, but we're not going to pay you for them. Two, we're protecting customers and passengers. And three, we're protecting corporate value. So those are the three things that are fundamental to this idea of ESG. And it's happening real time right here. So, all of that basically boils down to this thing that emerged in our lives, which is COVID. Right? And COVID gave us this idea that if we can register vaccines, if we can prove that we have vaccines, we're going to get access and we're going to get integration in our life, whether we're going to a restaurant, as we've talked about before, or we're going to work. So fundamentally, what we're launching today and this week is the choice program with VaxCertain being built in. So VaxCertain is where you can take your private information on vaccines. You can also take your private information of your identity, and you can integrate that and work on that with the choice program. And so today we're launching the choice program, which has WorkCertain involved with it. All of the tools you need to work. We've talked about those in the past, and it's for individuals, it's for businesses, and it's for enterprise. And that kind of summarizes what we've always been about, which is this idea of trustonomics.
Right.
So basically that builds in the things that we say at BlockCerts: trust, truth, and transparency, or in other words, the idea of environmental, social, and governance. Those are trust, truth, and transparency realities. So Dan, when we look at this choice program, if you go to BlockCerts.com right now, you'll see choice. And the way we built that was around the tokenomic model, 9B cert tokens. And what happens is anybody in the world at a globally levelized community membership can be part of this, bring this cloud to work with them, bring their own cloud, and engage with the organizations and the organizations they need to work for.
True, which is to me, it's just revolutionary because there's nobody talking about a private cloud, and it eliminates the issue that you were initially talking about, which is bring your own device, bring your own way to connect, and with a private cloud, it eliminates all of those issues.
That's right. That's right. So that's what we have to launch today. And as we move forward in the next steps, we have to look at, well, what does this kind of BCert tokenomics actually mean? So next week in the World From Here, we're going to talk about that. Like, how does this whole crypto market, how does blockchain play into that? And how does the workplace, the cloud, the future of DeFi and NFT work? And so, Dan, I'm going to leave with a bit of a cliffhanger here. This is rather short today, and we wanted to keep it that way. And the cliffhanger is, how are you going to take all of those integrations, all of those elements, and put them in? Like, what does that whole blockchain thing really mean? And it means, like, how do we get behind the hypes, the hoaxes, and the scams with the certain idea of Web 3.0 and DeFi? So just this week, it was announced that a collector bought a fake NFT for 244 million pounds, about $300,000, got their money back. But think about that. You're not going to be so lucky, right? And we've seen these things about fraud with vaccines. We've seen all of this kind of stuff. And, you know, this is happening out there. This is happening at lightning speed. So what are all these integrations and how do we keep up with them? So I'm going to end with this and explain a little bit about quantum physics and quantum theory. And people may not know, but one of the big unknowns in quantum physics and quantum theory is this idea of how relationships happen in the universe at the atomic level. And scientists have been trying to figure this out, but what actually happened was, it's recently been discovered that you can keep locality and realism together by giving up just a little bit of freedom. That's known as the freedom of choice loophole. So what we're going to talk about in the World From Here is this idea of choice, the freedom of choice loophole, and how at BlockCerts we've solved that problem. So it looks like we've lost Dan.
Oh, really?
I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up and say, please join us next week for our launch of the BCert token. The choice program is available at blockcerts.com. And if you like the webinars, as always, please click the thumbs up button, click subscribe, and we'll be back next week, Friday, 9:30 on the World From Here to talk about how all of this comes back together. So stay tuned, and we'll be anxious to talk to you about how to avoid hopes, hypes, hoaxes, scams, and stay certain. So
thank you, Tim.
And stay safe, stay healthy, and stay digital. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend.